Hey, Podnutzians. I'm going to try to do a little test here and a test inside of a test. I'm going to first time try to be recorded my Raspberry Pi desktop from the HDMI output. So my recording should have no effect on the actual performance of the desktop operating system. I'm also going to try to do like a little hardware testing, and I was asked to do a little streaming testing. The only kind of streaming testing I know how to do is literally load up a copyright free YouTube video and then show the stats for nerds. So I will do that. Also, I will say that there is tweaks you can do to your Chromium browser, which is the default in the Pixel Raspberry Pi desktop, which can give you better video performance. I haven't done that. I'm going with the base straight out of the box settings. So expect slightly, very slightly better results if you actually do those tweaks. We'll try to have a link to those tweaks in the description. Let's first get this thing booted up. Um, I will say one of the things I encourage people to do is let your Raspberry Pi boot up to your Pixel desktop and then do not touch it for at least 30-40 seconds. Unless you have a battery backup on it to keep the real time clock synced. First time you boot up the Raspberry Pi, it's going to have the time from the last time that you booted it up. And then it has to do a network time check to figure out what time it is to actually update the system clock settings. I did just power this Raspberry Pi down just a couple seconds ago, so the time is not going to be off greatly. Um, I also am using Synergy to get my mouse keyboard over to this screen, and the video is going through a capture card. Uh, so what I'm seeing on my screen is just a touch lag behind. First thing we got to do is we got to load up the browser. Let me come over here, load the default browser, which again is a Chromium based browser. I already have a Big Buck Bunny video right here, should be ready to go. I believe we're going to start it out in the highest settings, which this monitor, this output cannot do 4K, even though it does say that it can do 4K. I believe we're doing it in 1080, 60 frames a second. Let's go ahead and let it go. Full screen, enable stats for nerds. Oh no, we're right now in 1080p settings. Yeah, 480p settings. So we should see basically no dropped frames whatsoever. And we do see 19 out of 600 frames dropped. This number should not even remotely come close to going up. This number should stay pretty solid, pretty low for the most part, is what I'm going to say. I'm going to hit the number 5 just to jump like halfway into the video. Typically, when I jump large parts of the video, is when I see a lot of frame drops. You can see the video looks fine, looks smooth. I will say if you can get by with having a lower video setting on any Raspberry Pi, you will definitely see better results. Let's push this thing up now. We're going to say instead of auto 480p, let's go 720p. We are going to start seeing drop frames. Let's go back to number 1 near the beginning of the video again. I like to jump just to see what happens. You can definitely see frame drops, it says, are pretty consistently going up 1, 200, 207, 215, 224, 231, 245, 250. When I'm looking at the screen itself, I'm not visually seeing a lot of jitter, a lot of frame drops, but it's telling me I have frame drops, and I have to believe the YouTube settings. So then the logic is if we go up even higher, we should see even more dropped frames. Let's go ahead and take this thing up to a full 1080p, 60 frames a second. And I will say that my network is hardwired in. So none of the drops should be coming because of my network settings. And you can see it's saying almost half of my frames are getting dropped. 297 or 350 out of 700. Yeah, it's literally saying about half the frames are being dropped. And looking at the butterfly fly across the screen, I'm not seeing anything horrible, anything that would literally drive me crazy kind of thing. So even at the highest settings, it doesn't seem like I'm really dropping anything noticeable. I'm sure if you have this on an 80-inch TV, uh, you might be able to notice those drop frames. I'm gonna do now a really quick um, um, uh, CPU performance mark, and I'm gonna follow what this Magpie article says to do, where they were testing the Flirk case for the Raspberry Pi 4, and I will say Flirk case was one of my favorite cases for like the Raspberry Pi 2, Raspberry Pi 3. And what they said was when they ran these tests, um, the without a heat sink, it went up to like 79 degrees. At idle, 28 degrees, and with full load, when it went up to 46 degrees using the Flirt case, they then gave it an 8 out of 10. I don't think I would have given that an 8 out of 10 personally. I would have definitely given a little bit less. The clock speed, then they took up to 1.75. I'm 99% sure I have mine overclocked already. Uh, and it said it idled at 41 and it went up to 67 degrees. So now let me just close this browser down. I'm going to run this command right here while true. We can see the full command when I load up the terminal here. Control Alt letter T. You can see there it is. While true, do VC gen command measure clock arm, VC gen command measure time, attempt sleep 10, done ampersand stress dash C 4 dash T 300S, which means stress cores number 4. So 4 cores for 300 seconds. Go ahead and hit enter. And you can see it basically starts off at around 29 degrees. I will say, depends on the temperature where you're at is going to be directly affected. This has the ice tower cooler on it, no other case on it. So the fan is basically nonstop going the entire time. I will say I had a hard time seeing my temperature go above. I want to say once in a while it went above 38 degrees, uh, pushing 39. Like once or twice it hit 40 degrees, but I never really saw it go above that, which I will say makes me very happy. Once you go over a certain heat temperature, the Raspberry Pi will start to self throttle and turn down the core speeds, which then makes things take even longer. So typically when you're overheating on a Raspberry Pi, it actually causes things to go even slower. And you can see it jumped up to 35. Now it's jumped up to 37. Let's let it go for like another 20, 30 seconds. Let's see if it even goes up anymore. I will say in the article, they basically warn you to not leave this running too long because prolonged heat on a Raspberry Pi can be damaging to it. I will say I feel very confident with this Ice Tower heatsink. I have nothing to worry about. Um, so I can leave it running for 20, 30 minutes with absolutely no issue. And I will say the downside of the Ice Tower cooler is A, it's big. Two, it costs $20 before shipping. After shipping, I want to say it was $29. So it's not cheap. It is not even close to the cheapest cooling on the Raspberry Pi, but it is a genuine heat sink with active cooling, a built-in fan onto it. And I have not seen anybody give numbers as good as these numbers that I see with this Ice Tower cooler. You can see it's like going up to around 38, and that was where about I saw it peak at. I never really saw it go above that. One time when it was quite hot in this house, or no, at work, I did see it jump up to around 40 when I was running this test, but I didn't really see it get much hotter than that. So I will say overall, I am quite satisfied with this Raspberry Pi. Raspberry Pi 4 running the Ice Tower cooler. I also have a separate SD card running emulation, and I've seen really good results with that running even games up to the Nintendo 64 caliber of games. And there you go. We finally hit 39 degrees. And I will say, I didn't really see it go much above that. So I feel very safe, very confident in saying if you require constant speed, even if you're going to overtax your Raspberry Pi, you might want to invest in the Ice Tower case. Uh, okay, now go ahead and cancel that. Come over here, close that, and just say I want to thank everyone for downloading. Thank everyone for their support. If you have other tests you would like me to do on this Raspberry Pi, don't hesitate. You can shoot me an email. The easiest way to shoot me an email is minipc@podnutz.com because this is a mini PC, or you can send me an email directly at doortodoorgeek@gmail.com or mail@podnutz.com. Now, with that, I want to thank everyone, and we'll talk to everyone again real soon.